Welcome, friends, to the Here I Go Again podcast, where we discuss life, faith, politics, and a whole lot more. I'm your host, Rob Standridge, and I'm glad you're joining us today. So with that, here we go. Welcome to the Here I Go Again podcast. Guest Kevin West here today, representing the Honorable Kevin West, Representative Kevin West, running for Labor Commissioner. This is our 15th episode. Pretty cool. And so welcome, Kevin. How are things going on the campaign trail?
Well, campaign trail is going great. Of course, we did really well. June 16th, a 4-person race. I had about 42% of the vote. And just right after the 4th of July, we just hit it really hard again. Been traveling all over the state, talking to people, been getting great response.
Is the when you say 4-person race, what? So 42%. What was the next person down? We don't have to mention names. Yeah. What was the next person down?
Second place was at about 35.
Oh wow, okay, that's a good spread. Yeah, okay.
And then 14 and a half and about 8.
Okay. Yeah, I remember my very first race. Listened to experts tell me about, because I won the primary but didn't get enough. I think I was in the low to mid 40s, so similar. And they always said, well, you multiply the difference by 2. So they have to, so in your case, they'd have to make up 14 points to beat you. Yeah. So to tie you, I guess, theoretically 7, but not really. The math is kind of weird. So it's not exponential, but it's more and more difficult to make up that difference. So having that gives you some encouragement, I'm sure. Yes. But I have seen you, Kevin. I've been following your race. You are everywhere all the time. I think after here, where are you going after here?
I'm going to Tonkawa after we get done with this.
Well, we're recording this on the 11th, so Tonkawa, you won't get this before he gets there, but hopefully you will attend and see that event. So,
but I announced for Labor in October. Okay. And I have now officially put 30,000 miles on my truck since October. Okay. So, we've been just traveling and meeting with people. That's really what I think people really want. They want to get to know the person, and especially something like Labor Commissioner. A lot of people don't even know what the job does. Let alone
except for elevators, they know.
Yes, let alone how important it is. You know, so being able to get out and talk to people has been really effective.
Well, you're really good in those small forums. I mean, the what would you call those? Well, I guess forums, but where you're having discussions and people ask you questions. I really think you shine at, which is great for a labor commissioner because it shows you communicate well and that people like to not just hear you make a speech, but have a dialogue with you to understand who Kevin West is, where he came from, which is part of this podcast. We want to learn a little bit more about Kevin West. You can go to Wikipedia and all of that, but I want people to learn a little bit about Kevin. So I always ask this question of people that in public office. When did that epiphany happen for you? When did it happen for you where you said, okay, because if those of you who don't know, Kevin spent it'll be 10 years in the House of Representatives. So when did that happen where you said, oh, I'm going to get involved?
It was about 11 and a half years ago.
Okay.
I had always been interested in politics. I would study up on people who I'm going to be voting for or state questions, things like that. But outside of that, never really got involved. And I'd been doing a lot of complaining there toward the end of the Obama years, especially. And I just felt like it was being laid on my heart. Are you going to roll up your sleeves and do something, or are you just going to keep complaining? And so I finally decided.
Did Goldie say that, or did you say that?
No, that was just kind of laid on my heart. But I had been doing a lot of complaining for sure. And so I started looking into it, and lo and behold, my state rep was in his last term, and so I started looking at it. I represent District 54, which is Northmore and South Oklahoma City. It's been held by a Republican for a very, very long time. Helen Cole when she was in the House was
Was it
District
that?
54.
And who was your predecessor? Who was there?
Paul Wetzelhoff.
That's right, Paul
Yeah.
Wetzelhoff. Yes, we know Paul.
And so everybody that I talked to said, hey, that sounds great, but, expect a huge primary. That's where it's going to be won or lost. And so we just hit the ground running, started door knocking about 14 months before the election, wound up with no primary. I had a Democrat and a independent, won that general, and then got to start serving with you.
Yeah.
And
you came in, let's see, I guess 4 years after I came in.
Yeah. And then, of course, my first 2 years, we had the teacher walkout.
Oh, yeah, you came in just at the right time.
Yeah, just at the right time. It was perfect.
Teacher
timing.
strike, but yeah, teacher walkout.
And so I wound up in that next election in 18. I had a Democrat opponent and won that one. And then I haven't drawn an opponent since. My background, I'm in commercial cabinet making. We work with general contractors, do like hospitals and schools.
And is that what you do now currently, or you're out of that right now?
I'm out of that right now.
But that's what you've done your
Yes.
professional life.
Yeah, I've done that for a total of 40 years.
Okay.
In that, and I still worked at a cabinet shop the entire time I was in the legislature. I was doing estimating at that point.
Okay.
But whenever I decided to make this run, I told my employer, it wouldn't be fair to you because running statewide, I might have to go to Guyman or
Every day,
Broken Bow
Kevin,
or
every day.
whatever, So they were very understanding, very supportive. Greatly appreciate them. But what I found there at the legislature, I came in, you probably remember, I truly had zero agenda. Probably my biggest priority was knowing where the bathrooms were on each floor.
Well, in your first couple of years, I don't remember. I don't know if we worked together your first year or two. If we did, I'm not recalling. But we have worked together a lot of legislation.
Yes, we have. Well, really, my first 2 years, I don't think I even got a single bill heard over in the Senate.
Okay.
I just put some stuff out to kind of know what the process was like. They weren't hard hitting in any way, shape, or form, but you know how it is. You can explain to somebody what it takes to do it, but until you actually do it,
Right.
You don't know.
It is, they don't call it a sausage factory for nothing.
Yeah.
It's very difficult, especially for new legislators. Lisa, Senator Standridge,
Yes.
that's there now. She's learned that even though I was there, she's new. She just got there, and it's difficult to get things done up there.
It is.
So I guess we were similar in the fact that those Obama years that kind of were driving the country in the complete wrong direction, I think inspired a lot of folks to get involved. And I guess that's a good positive result, silver lining. You were before we started this podcast, we were talking off the air about some things that I've been following the Fauci and the vaccine issue, but you had shared, if you wouldn't mind sharing with our viewers, we'll talk about this a little bit because we have some legislation we share that's somewhat related.
Right.
But we were talking about the vaccinations and the Fauci, and you had told me about something I guess Senator Ron Johnson had mentioned. So what was that?
I was listening to Clay Travis and Buck Sexton's show on the way over here, and apparently yesterday they had Senator Johnson on, and they were talking about some of the things that we now know. And they were saying the official word is that women who were pregnant and got the vaccine, overall, there was about a 12% miscarriage rate.
Okay.
Which is high.
What is the normal in the normal
I
population?
did not hear what the
Okay.
normal was. I just
Okay.
heard that one was high.
That is high, okay.
But then the one that really jumped out to me, if you only look at women who were in the first trimester only,
Right.
that it was almost 82% miscarriage rate.
Really?
that
Yeah,
got the
that
vaccine.
sounds extraordinarily high. I know miscarriage rates in general are higher in the
Sure.
first trimester for sure,
Sure.
but not 80%.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
And and there's a lot of things that can cause that.
Oh, yeah,
you
sure.
know, I mean, I'm a cabinet maker. I'm not a doctor, but I do know that there's a lot of things that can cause that. But
When we don't even know what all. I mean, God does some amazing things, and one of the things He did was maybe to protect us or whatever. We don't know. We try our best, and I know expecting moms do everything possible they can, but sometimes things happen.
But it's really sad, that this was things that our government knew.
Yeah, because weren't there
People
texts
inside.
with Fauci that
Yes.
that have been shown lately where they knew this pregnancy concern?
Yeah.
but they didn't inform anybody.
Yeah, there are texts and emails, all kind of communication to indicate that they knew full well. And of course, all of this stems from the diary that Fauci was keeping on government property. A government-owned computer, so that's how they were able to access this. And it was a government-issued telephone that he had all these texts with. But they knew this. They would talk about it and then come out to the public and say, "There's nothing to worry about."
Well, yeah. Well, I think what bothered me the most during that, because you and I ran. I don't think we ran. I know you did. We'll talk about that in a minute. I think you ran some. We ran vaccine legislation together, but I think you ran some different one that was even stronger, even more powerful than what we did. But for me, as a health professional, what bothered me is when you give somebody a drug, you want to make sure that the good outweighs the bad.
Yes.
And in the case of the vaccine, we didn't know all the bad. It was brand new. It was experimental. So understandably, those I don't know about Fauci, but I mean, in general, I think health professionals wanted to try to save people.
Absolutely.
But why in the world would you be giving a vaccine to people at almost zero risk? That's what bothered me.
Yeah.
Giving it to children. Children were at unless they were immunocompromised in some way.
Yeah.
They were practically at zero risk. And I don't know about pregnant, expectant mothers. I don't know what the risk rate there was, but you need to always look at that. And so if they had known this factoid or would have made it public, then the scientists could have simply said, okay, well, for expectant mothers, realize that you have this increased risk and that you're at this much risk of dying of COVID. And so then they could make that decision on their own.
Exactly.
And so that's where public health, when it's government controlled, runs awry, I think, of real health care. But that needs to have parental involvement, patient involvement. So what I've got a list of the stuff you've done, but I know you remember the stuff about the vaccine. So I know you and I'm very proud of the mask stuff. We can talk about that in a minute. But what vaccine legislation did you run while you were there?
Well, I ran one, and we put it in the masking bill, and that's how we finally got it.
That was
signed
more of
into
an
law.
informational, though, right?
It was informational, and quite frankly, seemed very simple to me, because
It's a no-brainer.
the state of Oklahoma already has it in law that you can get an exemption for your child to not be vaccinated in school. And that can be 0 vaccinations, or maybe they just want to
Pick and
do it on
choose.
their own schedule or whatever.
I heard Trump talk about where even when he did his children or vaccinated his children, that him and his wife separated MMR into 3 separate vaccines. And he's certainly not a health professional. So I don't know I just heard him make that comment. I don't know what led him to do that back then, because I don't think the concerns were as prevalent when his kids were born. I think today, many parents probably would have opted to at least do those types of things, especially in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
And so what this bill said was acknowledging that if a school is going to put out information saying, hey, you need to get your kid vaccinated for the upcoming school year, they have to just include or have an exemption on file.
So that the parents are at least aware.
Because
a lot of them are not.
it, and we're acknowledging what state law is, because state law is either or. And I actually ran that bill, I think, 3 years in a row, and could not get it across the finish line. I finally got to where I could get it out of committee. The first year I couldn't even get it out of committee.
Was this when we were Democrat controlled?
No, no, we were Republican controlled. Finally got it out of committee. Then I couldn't get it heard on the floor. But when we had the masking bill, which also addressed the COVID passport in higher ed, we included the have to have an exemption on file disclosure. And so I think that was a really important bill on
I know Governor Stitt told me at the time that was his, maybe he says this to more authors, he said that was his favorite bill, at least up to that point. I think like you mentioned, the history of the vaccine, I think one interesting thing, and I give our colleagues a hard time, but I understand that that doesn't make you a rhino not to do that. But I mean, it is frustrating though when you see something that you believe is pretty common sense. I mean, just information. But the mask thing was crazy, Kevin. I never understood that.
It never made any sense.
I mean, I remember on the Senate floor, I had a bill that just said that people didn't have to wear masks. And you would have thought I was, passing socialism or something. The Republicans went crazy.
Yeah.
And some of them walked out on the floor. And thankfully, thanks to Senator Nathan Dahm, because he's the one that had that vehicle, all his bills, I think, were killed. So he handed that bill over to us, and we were able to put some of this stuff in. And I still, because there was a lot of opposition, you know as well as I do, you have to work within the system. Yeah. We still had to leave out the part about the general public.
Yes.
So our bill was only about really school.
Yeah.
Because nobody wanted. I don't understand that. Why would you not want why would you want the government to be able to force everybody to wear a mask? I never have. Yeah. I mean, take your risks. I mean,
exactly. Especially here in Oklahoma, as a business, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, mandate whatever they want. If you can't come into business, right?
You can't come in here unless you're wearing a mask. Right. They say you have to wear shoes and a shirt.
That's right.
So, I was working in a cabinet shop during that time, doing the.
You probably wear masks anyway because you're in a cabinet shop.
And the owner, kept asking me because he knew that I was in the legislature, and I told him, I said, if you're asking my opinion, here's what my opinion is. But frankly, this is your business. You get to determine. What you think is best, and
you may gain customers, lose customers, gain employees, lose employees. Up to you.
And ultimately, what he did was office personnel. If you could work from home, which most of us can because everything is done on a computer, that was highly recommended. If you did come in. We had a period of time where if you did come in, you did have to wear a mask. Our shop people are spread out, which, like you said, we're sanding on wood. There's a lot of dust and all that, so the mask out in the shop wasn't necessarily a big deal. Right. So we were able to navigate through that fairly well. But yeah, it just never made any sense to me.
So much fear. So much fear. And I understand that. I mean, I know people that lost loved ones, and even to this day, when I see somebody, so we just got back from Florida, which hopefully one day will be my southern command post. I was thinking of Rush Limbaugh when I thought about doing some podcasts from down there, but you see more people in masks there. But when I see that, it doesn't bother me. I think, well, maybe they lost a loved one, or maybe a child. You don't know. Just kind of like working in a pharmacy, I always told my employees, you don't know. They might have just lost their husband. They might have just lost their dad.
Or they might be compromised.
And they're really sick. Right.
Helps them to feel.
And I say, it's my dad used to always say, whatever floats your boat. Unless you're harming me or my family, I don't really care. That's what bothers you when the government, though, does.
Yes.
When the heavy hand comes in and says, we don't care what you think, then it makes you look at people differently. Because then when Kevin West is wearing a mask, are you doing it to shame me to wear a mask? Because the government tells you have to do it. I'm doing it. Why aren't you doing it? That's what people were feeling during that time, I think. And so,
yeah, it really accentuated that divide, I think. I know Oklahoma City did a mask mandate.
oh yeah, and the schools. Ugh.
Yeah. And when the schools did it, those first few schools, they were in direct violation of the law that you and I had passed.
That's correct. The superintendent of Oklahoma City Schools just blatantly said, we're not going to follow the law. And I'm like, well, yeah, Fuhrer, I guess you can do whatever you want. I mean, evidently you can, because nothing ever happened.
And then, of course, it went through the courts and it got ping-ponged around. Ultimately, the Supreme Court mostly upheld it.
Right.
They wound up going back to what your original I think it was what my original language was, and but you guys had that heard over in the Senate and had.
Well, they upheld all the vaccine, all the informational stuff, but in the beginning, they essentially vacated the mask thing, put it on hold. But in the end, it was kind of upheld.
Yeah. Best I remember, the initial ruling, which this was, in my opinion, a misinterpretation. They were utilizing the vaccine stuff, and they said that schools could require masks, and you could have an exemption. Where they missed the ball was they put it in the hands of the schools to make that determination. And then it went on up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, we had it in there to where it had to be a declaration of an emergency by the governor.
Right, yeah.
And they put it back to that a school could do it, but if they did, it had to be an agenda item on every monthly meeting so that the public could have that conversation.
Yeah, but now as an attorney, one thing that did bother me though was trying to call it a special law. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
It's a private. Oh, you got to do it to private schools too. And I'm like, go look at our statutes. Like 99% of them are public school only.
And that's where they were relying on that vaccine stuff, because one of the very few things that we mandate private schools do is participate in the vaccination program or have an exemption. And so they were saying if it wasn't for that, then there wouldn't be a problem. But the difference is that you don't have to have a reason. You don't have to state a reason for your exemption. And all of that goes through the health department. It's not the school that approves or disapproves.
It's just on file, right?
Yeah. And what they were doing with the masking was they were allowing the schools to set whatever criteria, and then you had to apply to the school, and then the school made the determination if that met the criteria or not. And this was
I'd say
huge
for
problem.
Current and future legislators in Oklahoma out there, there's a lot of work that could still be done to protect people if something like this were to happen again.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite bills that you sent over, and I was so thankful you asked me off this because it was fun, was the license to kill. I call it, I think you probably came up with a name or somebody did in the House, but it came over and first report asked me about it, I called it the license to kill bill.
Yeah.
And it's not a James Bond bill,
no.
But I know some folks that are watching or listening probably, and they're politically savvy, have heard of this bill, but they may not know what it does and why it got that moniker of license to kill. So please share.
Well, again,
I don't know the bill number. I can't even remember the year for sure. It's around 2020, somewhere in the COVID time.
Well, it was after COVID.
It was after COVID, so 21 or 22 probably.
After the Summer of Love.
That's right. It was after. It was as a result of the riots in Tulsa.
Yes, and so basically, what happened in Tulsa. There was a riot on the highway. It slowed traffic down, and the rioters did extensive damage to a truck and a horse trailer. So after seeing all the things that went on nationwide, myself and a few others got to looking at our riot law, and so we basically just put in there that if you find yourself in a riot and you're in your vehicle, you can use your vehicle to get out of it. You don't have to just sit there and let them beat the tar out of your car, break the windows, drag you out.
Well, they tried to drag that family out.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
So, it's really that personal protection. Now, some of our colleagues in both chambers kind of went to great extremes, to say, well, if you're sitting in your car at a intersection at a red light and the light turns green and somebody's in the crosswalk, you can just run them down. No, that's not what this bill did. Yeah. And we did also have in there a part, I don't know if you remember this, but we borrowed language from the RICO statute, which is how we wind up getting like mobsters and stuff, and put that language in there to basically say that if you, Rob Standridge, buy a whole bunch of bricks and put them in Oklahoma City so that the rioters have bricks, and we can tie that to you, then we could charge you with that. That part did get overturned by the court because they basically said it would be too hard to determine if that's why you were doing
intent.
Unless you're building a building down there, and even if you're building a building, you're going to have all the bricks in one spot. You're not going to have them spread out all over downtown.
But why wouldn't you just leave that to the DA to prove intent?
Yeah,
I mean, they could have.
That's kind of what I said, but they struck that part down,
Okay.
but kept the most important part really. But we had also heard not so much here in Oklahoma, but in other states where people were doing things like that. There would be pallets of bricks just randomly show up, and the rioters were able to use that to do even more damage.
It's amazing that whole summer, or actually it went on for a couple of years, really.
Yeah.
Still kind of does a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like, because the whole ICE thing, I mean, why so much violence? The left is out of control with violence and hate. But I won't. You reminded me, because I know I don't want to throw her completely under the bus, so I won't mention her name. But one of my Democrat friends in the Senate, I really enjoyed her. I do. I think I like her. She's super nice. But man, when she gets that microphone, but she went on and on with me about a mother crossing a crosswalk, and to be honest with you, she didn't explain it as clearly as you just did.
Yeah.
The light's green, now it turns, or it's red, now it turns green, and they're caught there, and you can just run them over. She just said you could just run them over anyway.
Yeah.
And so she knows. That's why I don't want to mention her name, because I mean they know that's not what the bill allows for.
They know.
but I don't know why this whole left right is turning into the left defending crime and riots. And I mean, why? I mean, this is not what the left and right was about 20 years ago.
And nothing in that bill prevents people from having their say. Sometimes things happen that are egregious, but there's a right way to do it.
Yeah. No, I'm sure if you just went driving along and you weren't in any danger and you run over people, this law is not going to protect you.
No,
but I am fascinated by that, because prior to Obama, I think Obama created so much of this division and hate.
Yes.
Whether he did it intentionally or not, I don't know. But that time period, that 8-year time period, really created a lot of division and hate. Because before then, it was like big government versus small government. Mm-hmm. And the right's sometimes guilty of corporate welfare, something I don't like. So you have that on the right, and you have smaller people, and you have unions versus non-union. These things. Big healthcare, small healthcare. But over the last decade or two, it's turned into this crazy hate fest where the left, if you do not agree with them on every crazy idea they have, because you don't have to agree with every crazy idea on the right. I mean,
No.
even some on the right said, well, their idea is a little crazy. So it's like, you don't have to agree with that. I mean, the left has gone away from independent thinking and into
Totally.
this track of hatred and
Yeah.
rioting and violence and
it's almost like a hive mentality.
it is. It's they accuse anybody that supports Trump. They accuse it of groupthink and Kool-Aid and all that, which is so weird because I don't support him on everything, but I do think he's one of the best. I'm a huge Reagan fan, so I hate to diss Reagan, but I mean, I can't. I wasn't really in tune during Reagan, so as far as my life is concerned, he's by far the greatest president that has served. Does what he says. Is he right all the time? No. I mean, I don't want to get into him. But there's several things he does that I'm like, I do that different. The Iran thing, Monday morning quarterback that maybe it could be done differently. Right. But he is literally trying, and he's the Save America. If he can somehow get that done, that will save. So I love the legislation. I know it's labor commissioners, what you want to talk about. So maybe we should do a segue over to that. But anybody knows I fully endorse Kevin West for labor commissioner. I think you do a fantastic job, just as you did in the legislature. But let's share a little bit about, besides elevators,
Sure.
Labor. I don't want to belittle the job. It is a very, very important job. But what are some of the things that the labor commissioner does that Kevin West would have a natural aptitude to take care of?
Well, the things that it does is, first and foremost, you enforce all of the labor laws in the state of Oklahoma. That applies to the multi-million-dollar facility just like it does a mom and pop. With my experience, 40 years in construction, I've been on job sites, I've been on those shop floors, I've managed departments, I owned my own cabinet shop from 96 to 04. I've done project management, which when you're a project manager at a commercial cabinet shop, you have probably about a dozen jobs going at any given time. And they range from we just got the contract to we're trying to get out the door and get on to the next job. So, and everything in between, so you're juggling a lot of balls at the time. So all of that, gives me a lot of discernment. I know what it's like to hire people, look for talent. I know what it's like to work under those conditions, all of that. We also do the inspections, like you mentioned, elevators, boilers, and amusement rides. And then there's some limited licensing. But other than the two areas, other than the enforcing the labor laws and adjudicating cases where there's a dispute between an employer and an employee over wages or hours, everything else falls under safety, whether personal safety, public safety, things like that. So having again that experience, I've worked with the Department of Labor on these job sites. Even though we are a federal OSHA state for the general public, meaning federal OSHA has the ultimate jurisdiction, but they work in conjunction with the Labor Department. If it's state employees, then that is under the Department of Labor for the safety issues.
Oh, for the safety issues.
Yeah. So, with, like I said, with my background there, and I really do think, talking about some of these bills is a really good segue into a little bit about me, because as a cabinet maker on these commercial projects, every trade is asked to get it done just a little bit quicker.
Sure.
Because we're, like I said, we're doing hospitals or schools, things that have a deadline. We're contractually obligated to have it done on a certain date, all of this stuff. But as you can imagine, cabinet making, we're one of the last trades in there. So you still have these incremental delays. So my entire career has been about identifying a problem, and then you pull people together to come up with a resolution, and then you execute that so that you can get it done on time. And as you know, your time in the Senate, and even just people watching know, we've got a lot of people in government that are really good at identifying problems. I mean, it's campaign season. Every ad, somebody is running to fix a problem.
Right. True.
So
whether the problem really exists or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have no shortage of people who can identify problems. We have a shortage of people who can actually pull people together and start coming up with solutions for that. And I say my legislative record is a really good indicator because, like I said, I had my agenda was to be a blue collar Oklahoma common sense voice at 23rd and Lincoln. And once I got up there, you know, these things started presenting themselves, and most of the people in the building agreed somebody needed to do something, but nobody was really stepping up to do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, my third year, the first big bill that I ran was constitutional carry.
Oh yeah.
We had passed it the year before. Mary Fallon vetoed it.
Yeah.
So
Senator Nathan Dahm
Yeah.
had his vetoed. Yeah.
So my third year, Governor Stitt's first year,
He said that's the first bill I want to
Yep.
sign. Yeah.
and that's what he signed.
Yeah.
So, you know, that kind of launched all of this.
That shows how well you work. I mean, I've always noticed this about you, Kevin. You always can pull people together, work, whether you end up being the author or you work to get somebody else to be the author. I think that's a skill set you have, which, like you say, I think that fits very well within the Labor Department.
Right. And, you know, I've had the opportunity to run bills that were possibly even more important than some of these high profile bills that I've ran, you know, like on banning gender procedures on minors or vaccines or all that. One that I'm incredibly proud of is expanding apprenticeship programs to 16 and 17-year-olds. Didn't make any headlines, you know, but what that does is it gives an opportunity for a kid who's still in high school to experience what it's like in the real world on this job.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
whether it's a construction job, we have some kids that are being able to shadow at independent pharmacies like what you have, shadow with nursing, get them on job sites. And one of the groups that works here in this area, they work Oklahoma City, Moore, and Norman. Right before high school graduation, they had a signing day ceremony, and they had 40 kids that had gone through that program, built a relationship with these employers, and they were agreeing when they walk off that graduation stage, they're walking into a job.
Into a job, right.
That
yeah.
pays $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year to start. So those are some of the, in my want to list as labor commissioner, those are some of the things, you know, I really want to highlight things like that. We have other programs that vary across the state, you know, based on what that area's needs are, but you know, really highlighting that because so many employers don't even know that that's available.
That's perfect. So this legislation that we run, you know, similar to the one you ran, do any of them put the labor commissioner at the point of that, let's see, PR spear?
Not specifically, but
it's more a Department of Commerce or something like that. But maybe the labor commissioner could take on some of that.
Yes, absolutely, because the Department of Labor and the Office of Labor Commissioner are both in the state constitution. But then it says the legislature will determine the duties.
Yeah.
You know, and
typical,
so you go to Title 40, which is where almost all of that falls. And the very first thing in there, this really jumped out to me and really spoke to me, is the labor commissioner shall, foster, promote, and develop the welfare of the wage earners of the state.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, I mean, you tell me, listeners make a determination. I think, helping to build these pipelines, promote things like that is fostering, promoting, and developing the welfare of the wage earners of the state.
For sure.
And if you're helping, to me, that statement also says that the primary function is to be the voice for the worker. If you're helping the worker, you're helping the business. So I see it all going hand in hand. And as labor commissioner, I'll be in contact with virtually all of the businesses in the state of Oklahoma. So having those conversations, what are your needs, for you to be able to grow? The state does not facilitate those apprenticeship type programs, which that's a more of a generic term. These aren't certified.
They're not
programs.
state. These are programs that can be taken advantage of. Right?
Yes, and our VOTEC system recognizes them. So
are they through the VOTEC system?
Yeah.
I assume, right?
Yeah, and or the schools, but if they're in a program that allows for that, then the hours that they spend on a job site counts towards their classroom hours.
Oh, okay.
So,
was that in that legislation as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So, here in Norman, we've got the Aviation Academy, which that would be a great place to foster and
Absolutely.
promote. And because
Absolutely.
we have a huge burgeoning aerospace industry in Oklahoma. So there's a lot of areas where if you did take that on, because that would be almost something I think the labor commissioner would have to proactively, which I could
Yes.
see you doing that, proactively say, I think I'm going to start doing this.
Well, it's kind of like if you remember back when Mark Costello was.
Yeah, he
labor
was out. He
commissioner.
was out there all the time.
He was out there on a lot of things. He
Yeah.
had a lot. Most of his revolved around promoting safety,
Yeah,
and again, that's helping the workers. Because if a worker doesn't go home whole, it hurts the business. But even more importantly, it hurts that family. Because if you're not able to go to work the next day, that causes major disruptions. Whether you get a settlement or whatever, it's still not the same.
it'd rather be prevented in the first place.
Absolutely.
So, have you visited at all with we both? I think you came in before Leslie Osborne left. I think you probably served a couple years with her. So she's the current commissioner, labor commissioner, and I served with her. In fact, we had a great working relationship when she was in there. Have you visited with her at all about what the challenges are?
I have not had a sit down with her. I've been really focused on getting
all over the state at every
getting
corner.
to be the nominee for
Right.
the Republicans. I absolutely will once I sit down. Once I cross that hurdle on August 25th. I have talked to some of the former labor commissioners, and yes, there are a lot of hurdles with that. Anytime you take on a quote side project, there are obstacles. You have to be able to still do the job. And kind of like I said, especially being a project manager for multiple projects, having a division that's doing inspections and a division that's doing adjudicating cases and enforcing laws and doing the licenses, is pretty much what I've done most of my career.
Yeah, I think that I don't know the background of all four that you were up against, but my guess is that your background of owning, operating, doing these, and in your private sector on top of your legislative experience, I think gives you so much better resume, in my opinion, than any of the others that were running, which is probably one of the reasons why you finished on top.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I think that you have a good chance of finishing. So, well, back to some legislation. So we talked about some really good stuff. So what is it? Did you do critical race theory? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
So, in Cleveland County, in my district, when I served, I tell people this because I co-authored it, and I did a press release and I talked about it, but I wasn't the author. And so this may be some advice for some legislators out there. People in my district really thought I did that.
Oh, yeah.
And so and of course I'd say, yeah, Kevin had something to do with it. But anyway, I hate to say enjoy, but politics, you need to have some enjoyment in it, because it can be a drudgery if you're not careful, and you can live on disappointments instead of achievements. But I really enjoyed that because it really brought to the forefront in the legislature discussion about something that was a little uncomfortable, because people don't know what critical race theory is,
right.
and I don't think they still do. And so until you see it, in fact, until I saw a video of a person teaching it to teachers in Norman public schools, I mean, literally teaching it, I really wasn't that aware. So, and I think, for me, when you think about pure politics, a lot of the things you did and we did together, like the mass, I mean, that's really policy over politics purely, even though it's very political.
Yeah.
Critical race theory is as well. However, in the public eye, I think they see it as political, but you studied it at length. Can you, in a nutshell, tell people what is critical race theory? What is it?
Critical race theory, the way that it's listed in the bill, which we list the 8 main tenets of critical race.
Yeah, you can't really say critical race theory.
Right. You
have to define what it is.
Right. And what that is saying that because you are a male, you're better or worse than a female. Because you're white, you're better or worse than somebody who's not white. And honestly, that's one of those bills that it has been a while, but that one is probably the one that has lived the longest in the media, because it was probably 2 or 3 years after it passed when the movie Killers of the Flower Moon came out.
Okay.
And I was getting calls to do interviews about the critical race theory and could that be shown in school and all of these things. And I've said this in multiple interviews. It usually doesn't make the final cut, whether it's printed or videoed. But after really digging into it, I'm actually kind of surprised that during or right after World War II, we didn't pass something like this, because it's exactly what Nazi Germany was saying. They were saying, because you're Jewish,
correct,
you're less.
You're inferior.
You're inferior.
Right.
Because you're not of the Aryan race, is what it ultimately
right.
came to. You know, blonde hair, blue eyes, white skin. That's the superior. That's the goal. Everything
just
else
like Hitler.
is inferior. Exactly. So
you can't come back from the dead, right?
I've said that multiple times. 2 things that I've said whenever I've interviewed on that. I have begged them to put the entire bill in the article.
Yeah.
It's a total of 1.5 pages. It is a very short bill, and it simply lists those 8 tenets. And nobody has taken me up on that, and nobody has printed what I just said about, during or right after World War II, because that is exactly what that was. It cuts both ways. It's not saying that you can say that white people are better, but you're also not going to say that white people are worse just simply because of the color of their skin, because of their gender. Any of these things. I mean, to me, especially after digging into it just a little bit, it's like, this is a absolute no-brainer.
Oh yeah. I'll never forget. Somebody sent me a clip in Norman Public Schools, right down the street from where I live. This woman that was brought in, a black lady. She was brought in, and she went through, the big thing was the wheel. The critical race theory wheel. And so essentially what it boiled down to is to get rid of the whiteness. I mean, she went over that, and you can tell because it's being filmed on somebody's phone. There's white people all over the place.
Yeah.
And they're not cheering, but they're doing the I'm like, that's your children. I mean, I don't care about you. I could care less if you're inferior, but these people are essentially saying that your child is not as good as the next one, based solely on the color. It's no different than the discrimination we did to black people for 150 years.
Absolutely.
It's actually worse because we're not helping, I don't think, black young people by this, making them hate white people.
No.
That doesn't help anything.
No.
You can't push people down to bring others up, and that's what it's all about. And they're still doing it.
Yeah.
They're still doing it.
They're still doing it. And you hit the nail on the head with that. This is teaching our children that because they're white, there's something wrong with them.
That's right.
And
sins of the father, so to speak.
If you reverse that, because this bill, like I said, it's a two-edged sword. It cuts both ways. If you were to stand up and say that a black child is inferior, everybody would be like, oh, well, you can't say that.
Right.
But it's perfectly okay to say that because you're white, you have to be on an apology tour.
That's right.
That's
right. And again, as these are all, a lot of these, at least the ones that were kind of doing this, and I'm watching that white people doing this. I'm like, okay, you're so caught up in the wokeness or whatever the weirdness funk of your brain, your liberal brain, that if you want to go on an apology tour for yourself, but would you stop for a second and think what impact that has on your kids?
Yeah. Because
if you're inferior because you're white and you have to apologize to everybody when you didn't do anything, what are you communicating to your child? Now they're going to grow up with something that's stigma. So, they want to get rid of stigmas all the time too. Homeless stigma, drug addiction stigma.
Yeah.
So now they're going to stick a stigma. Get rid of all these stigmas that you don't like, but let's add a new stigma to young white kids. And I just don't. We don't want to do that for young black kids. We don't do it to any kids.
Well,
let them grow up as equal as possible.
Yeah, and of course, I don't think that this issue, it probably just started kind of creeping up right at the end of your tenure. But DEI is a lot the same.
And we've done nothing. It's still rampant at OU. Still rampant.
I had two pieces of legislation this past year. I got both of them passed out of the House. Couldn't get a hearing over in the Senate.
Probably because you used that David Bullard guy. It's probably.
One of them I did. One of them was somebody else. But
I love Senator Bullard. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
Yeah, David has become one of my go-tos.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
And if he's running something, if I get a phone call from him asking to run a bill, I know it's going to be something along those lines.
It's going to be interesting.
If I call him, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, right.
But what these two bills did, they kind of worked in conjunction with each other, and it was focused on higher ed and their accreditation. To get their curriculum accredited, most of them have DEI garbage in there.
Yeah.
So this was the first one was simply just a report. We need to know if it has that, if it doesn't. No penalties, no nothing. And then the other one kind of took it the next step, that you start working on a plan to get off of that. You replace it still, because there's a lot of the southern states have started working toward coming together to come up with their own curriculum and things like this that are accredited just the same. You're not lowering these standards, and if you can't find something, then you can continue doing what you're doing. But the whole point of it is we need as many states as possible to get on board with something like this, so that they can start getting together to come up with accredited courses that don't include that. Because I've always been offended that just because, I mean, now I'm 58 years old, because of my age, I might not be considered for a job if I'm putting in an application. I think it's just as demeaning to say that, well, we had one person of color, so that's the one we have to hire. I would always be wondering, did I get the job because I'm the best, or did I get the job because of something else?
There's clearly a lot of DEI hires out there that aren't the best quality.
Yeah. I mean, we see that every day.
Well, I'll never forget Tom Gann, Representative Gann, running a meeting on the gender, some other bills that you've run. I'm not sure if you were the lead author on the one with Julie Daniels. Were you the lead author on that? Okay. But anyway, I know you've run some legislation on the gender surgeries and drugs and all that, but he had a meeting with the OU because they were doing these crazy things.
Yes.
And I learned there something that I kind of knew, but it's always about the money. I mean, for $500,000, we stopped them cold.
Yep.
So they took $500,000 from them, and they all of a sudden stopped. I mean, like, is it so? Which I thought we were going to have all these suicides if you didn't lop off body parts.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden, if you're going to lose 500,000, you stop lopping them off.
Yeah.
So what is it? Which is more important, the supposed suicides or living happily, or the money? It's always the money. So the same, I think, is going to have to happen with DEI.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to have to come along with the cojones. Hopefully, my good friend Mike Macy when he's governor, but the cojones to say, "Listen, guys, it's about the money.
Yep.
Cut off their money until they stop doing it, and they'll stop doing it yesterday.
Yeah.
Because if they lose money, that's their god. They worship the money.
Yeah,
and you
absolutely.
take their money away. Yeah, it's all about the money.
Yeah,
always.
It's always been about the money. A few years ago, I presented the bill. I wasn't the House author on it. But
on which one?
The so-called bathroom bill.
Oh, the bathroom bill, right.
When we were having a lot of issues with boys trying to go to the girls' restroom, all of that. And we even had one school in the state put out an official statement saying that there's nothing in statute that they could stand on to prevent that. Now, I would strongly disagree.
I think common sense might allow you.
Yeah.
Like you don't let somebody go run naked up and down the hall. I don't think there's a statute for that, but you probably don't let it happen.
Right. So a group of us over in the House got together and wrote what became the bathroom bill. And I was in that group, and I was the one that was elected to present it. And one of the things that we put in there was if you are found to be in violation of this, not that it just happens, not that a boy dressed up like a girl walks into the girls' restroom, but knowingly allowing this to happen. And it's found out that you lose 5% of your state funding.
Oh, really? But that was in the original bill.
That was.
Did it make in the final draft?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It did. That is in state law today.
Oh, wow. Okay. So there are no boys and girls bathrooms, I would bet you.
Well,
at least knowing.
After that bill, we had a school that had an incident that got some notice. And this was a student who had transferred into the school. And so the school officials say that they didn't know because it was a transfer in, and this boy was presented as a girl, and they just assumed that that's what it was. It was later there was an incident in the bathroom. Well, the police were called, and in their police report, the police officer's report said that they were having these conversations, and they went to the office, and they pulled out this student's file, and it was clear that they knew that this was a boy, not a girl. And so one of the conversations I had with then Superintendent Ryan Walters was, you need to push this, because I guarantee you push this, because either the school officials are lying or the police officer lied on the police report. Either way, we need to know from the general public. And if it was the school and you enforce that 5% funding, I guarantee you no school will ever do that again. Well, they wound up not pushing that, but to the best of my knowledge, it has pretty much ended. But those are some of the things that we're going to have to do, because you're exactly right. If there's no loss of money over it, or they can get additional money, they'll just keep doing things like that. That was one of the reasons. You mentioned Julie Daniels' gender procedure bill. That's the one that actually got signed into law.
Yes. Yeah.
I had one that I started in the House, myself and Representative Jim Olson, and in that original version, we included the prohibition of any state funds being used for the procedure itself, the drugs, the referrals, any of that. That was not in the Senate version that came over. They did not hear my bill over in the Senate. They wanted to run they wanted the Senate bill to go through. I tried to get them to add that. I couldn't talk them into doing that. So it gets signed into law. Well, this past year, we came back and added no state funds can be used for things like that. So we do have that protection now.
So one other thing needs to be added is stronger cause of action.
Yes.
Like the Dobbs case. I mean, I ran that for several years, and I do appreciate Senator Daniels and what she did, but I do think the cause of action could be a lot stronger, and did talk to her about it at the time. You know, one thing about this whole gender thing, and, you know, the left, the crazy left, I guarantee you'll see all sorts of posts on this that say, you know, you're so focused on gender and all that. I said, whatever, say what you want. But this is about children at the end of the day.
It's about protecting children.
And so one of our judges here in Cleveland County, I learned, and so correct me if I'm wrong, but I did some research, Judge Virgin, our law does not allow you to change the gender of a child, that their biological sex, but he's done that. I've researched the county records in Cleveland County. This is the first time I've said this on my podcast. You just made me think of this. And I ran some legislation before I left to try to prevent judges from doing that, even though I don't think legally they can do that. But he's done it. Yep. And I'm very disturbed by that, because I don't know what goes through a person's head anyway as a judge, having that power to actually change what can't be changed. Yep. Bizarre, right?
Well, I too became aware of that.
Oh, you're aware of it as well. Okay, this is the first time I don't think I've told anything. Oh, it is
fixed.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yes.
It's fixed. How's it fixed?
So, several years ago, I don't remember how long ago, Senator Bergstrom and Representative Dills had the birth certificate bill.
I remember that, yes. But this is post that.
Yes.
Okay.
So we had a person who was born here in Oklahoma, but now lived in, I believe, Oregon.
Okay.
That petitioned to change their birth certificate.
Okay.
We have no provision for that in our state law. It was a health commissioner a couple back made an agreement to go ahead and do that. And that's what prompted the bill that Bergstrom and Dills ran. And what happened, there are 3 areas of that law where we put the exact same language in that said you couldn't change from male to female or use non-binary. No, it was that you couldn't use non-binary in there. So the third part of that was in the section that describes reasons that you could change a birth certificate, and most of them are mistakes, Scribner's error.
Yeah, there's errors on birth certificates. I assume there could be a gender error, but it's like 1 in a trillion, probably.
Yeah. So what they were arguing is that the state of Oklahoma says you can change a birth certificate. You just can't change. You just can't use non-binary.
Okay.
But you can change from male to female or female to male. And then we had rules on driver's license that allowed for the change. If you had had the surgery, there was one other provision, and then there was one just because I just feel like I'm no longer a boy.
Right, I'm a turkey today. Yeah.
I found both of those. I got those 3 rules removed. They were in Service Oklahoma's rules. Now, Service Oklahoma didn't do them. They inherited them when we created that. So it was done some time back. I don't know when. I looked. I couldn't find the origin of it. But we got those 3 rules stricken, and then we changed that one provision in the law that said also you cannot change from male to female or female to male, or use non-binary. So it was a technicality, and every court case that I saw relied much more heavily on the driver's license rules because they were broader. There were, I think the last one that I saw, there was one reference to the statute and about a dozen references to those rules.
The ones I found, I think I found 2, 3, maybe 4 of them. So it wasn't a ton, but it was some. There was no rationale given. It was just a signature from the judge saying, "Yeah, okay."
Well, the one that I saw, it had the full arguments and referenced those rules. That's how I was able to find them.
Okay.
And of course, the legislature approves or disapproves admin rules, but who knows how long ago that was put in. There was even some discussion when I was running the bill to remove those rules that, well, we have to do that because the federal government allows it. The federal government doesn't. It allows for it, but it specifically says it's up to the state to determine if you want to do this or not. We don't have any statutory authority for that. So we were able to get those removed. I did that with both of those bills with Senator Bergstrom.
Well, I was baffled to see. I mean, I've always kind of liked Judge Virgin, but I saw that and I'm like, how can one man or woman, whatever, that's that highly educated?
Yeah.
I mean, this is not, getting a law degree is not getting out of a Cracker Jack box. This is a highly educated individual that knows that biological sex can't be changed. He knows that there's chromosomal rationale for that. So to make that signature, to prove that, to me, I found that very bizarre. Like if it's just some, what is a woman with if you watch that, there's a bunch of wacky counselors. Well, they're not highly educated. In fact, I'd say they're all morons. But I mean, for them to sign something, they have you can change it. Yeah, sure, whatever. The sky's purple tomorrow, whatever, pink the next day. I mean, they don't know. They don't have any biology, no really education. But for a highly educated, very smart, I mean, Jeff's a smart guy. For him to do that, that escapes me.
Yeah,
I mean,
I would be interested to see
if it's still going on.
The one that you saw, because the one I saw.
I'll find those. I have those. In fact, it may be closer on the tip of my mind because I was going through some stuff here in the last couple of days looking for something in my digital files, and I ran across some of that stuff I'd scanned in. So I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, because I had seen like 2 or 3. And what the ruling was that they could change their driver's license.
I'll look at him and see.
I did double check with our current health commissioner, and he said it doesn't matter what a ruling says on the birth certificate. we have no statutory authority to change it for those reasons. And so the 2 or 3 that I
Had to be on the driver's license, what
Yeah.
you're saying. So
The 2 or
which
3
allowed
that
for
I-
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 2 or 3 that I saw, it was specific to the driver's license. Now, that's not to say that there might not be one floating out there that,
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's what
But-
they were. I don't. It's been a number of years
Yeah.
ago, but it. I think. I mean, maybe we're gonna have to get to this point one day where you just have to say you got to have your chromosomes looked at. I mean, we can tell, just so you know.
Yeah.
We know, but I mean,
Yeah.
we just so you're comfortable with the decision we're making. we're gonna take a little blood. So what? Okay, so we covered some great bills. I had a lot of fun working with you, Kevin. I think
Yeah.
you great legislator, great member of the House. What other bills? What other? We covered the license to kill, and I feel sorry with one senator and her children, but hopefully she feels safe.
well,
now.
there was one, we wound up not getting this one passed, but I ran with your wife, the new Senator Standry.
The much new and improved, greatly improved for sure.
She is incredible to work with.
Yeah.
We ran, we've ran together 2 bills that deal with homeless, and then one that goes back to the securitization. I don't know.
Oh yeah, she was
People
telling me about that. I'm
remember
surprised that didn't pass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
After Winter Storm Uri, we had these additional costs, and we were all told in the legislature that if we don't pass this, we got to do it right now. If we don't do it, your constituents are going to get $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 electric bills.
I remember that. Yeah.
And it ultimately passed. I voted against it for multiple reasons, but chief among them is because they couldn't give us anything definite on even how much they had spent for those fuel costs, let alone what that was going to actually be on somebody's electric bill. And so I was like, I want to know. I don't want to just agree to a bill that's basically
it was a
giving
blank
you
check.
a blank check.
Yeah, it was a blank check bill.
Well, it passed. The Corporation Commission finally worked through all of their challenges to it and everything, and they got the bonding done, and it equated to about $8 instead of this $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 bills for each person.
Really?
Yeah. And we were also told that it would probably be 8 to 10 years for them to get that paid off and pay off that bond. And even though it said in statute 30 years, so that was one of the questions that I asked, and come to find out it's a 28-year deal. So for 28 years, everybody's going to get to pay an extra like $8 a month for 28 years. One of the corporation commissioners at the time said, well, we saved the average customer about $450. Do the math, $5 a month for 28 years is way more than $450. But that's all beside the point. Pretty much every city has what's called a franchise fee, and that's voted on by the people in that community. And what that is a tax on top of what you're already paying for your electric bill.
So the city can make revenue off
Yes.
of it, essentially.
And like I said, it's all upfront, transparent. The people vote on it. They either pass it or they don't. Well, one of our major cities figured out that, hey, we could put a franchise fee on top of that securitization amount, even though it is specifically a separate dollar amount shown on your bill. And they challenged and fought for it and were able to get it.
And won. In other words, they were able to tax the repayment of the
Yes.
securitization loan.
So I introduced legislation that said that you couldn't do that unless it was specifically voted on by the people. Not touching your franchise fees at all. We're talking about this amount, and it sat over in the Senate for 2 years, not getting a hearing. Passed on the House very easily, but even if the horse is out of the barn, so to speak, I still feel like something like that is important to have on the books, because now that we've cracked that door open on securitization, it's going to happen again. And I think future legislators need to have that knowledge, because some states, when I got to studying it, some states did specifically exclude that, and some states didn't. And
yeah, we should have, but it just didn't happen. Yeah.
Well, we were trying. The storm happened in February, and I think we passed the bill on the House side the middle of March. It was maybe a month after the event. Might have been toward the end of March, but I mean, and that's some of the things that sometimes happen up at the legislature. They get to saying, we got to do it, and
usually not good.
Usually not. Yeah, it's usually best to tap the.
Well, the homeless deal, Senator Standard, Lisa, is very passionate about that, and it's become a major problem in Norman, and Lawton, it's been a problem, but I think they've actually found some local ways to fix it.
Yeah.
Unlike Norman, and I've never been in the habit of throwing public servants under the bus. So I don't know all the machinations in the city, but the reality is there's, when you have encampments of homeless folks, the percentage of bad people in that group is, we talked about this horrible stats with the vaccine earlier, and so I don't want to compare that necessarily, but the stats are, I guarantee, I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but if you're not going to let your child walk through a homeless encampment.
Right.
And they become so big in Norman that there's several places in Norman where large communities with lots of children are right next to very large homeless encampments. Mm-hmm. San Francisco, like some of them. Yep. The one over off of on the east side of Norman has become pretty huge.
Yep.
And I know you guys didn't get that bill done, but hopefully over time, I don't think that's a labor commissioner thing, but I appreciate you doing that. But I don't know. You got to find humor in things, Kevin. Yeah. So, have you heard the machete one?
I have not heard.
So the press, I don't know what it is about the press and the homeless issue. It's like they don't, at least some of them, these are human beings too. Mm-hmm. So homeless people, just whether they're homeless or whatever the struggles somebody's facing, we all should be fellow humans and help and all of that. That's absolutely goes without saying. But that's in your community, not your government, in my opinion. But why would somebody? It's almost like they put them on a pedestal. Mm-hmm. When many of them are drug addicted, criminals. Yeah. Some of them absolutely will accept help. Many of them will not.
Yeah.
And they won't go to work. But the machete thing, I mean, the way they report on this stuff. So they reported that this woman, I guess, attacked a dog with a machete. And they just, in the way the article was written, just like a matter of fact, I'm like, we're in the middle of Norman. Who the hell has a machete?
Right.
And so, what is with? I mean, you as an author of this type of legislation and seeing the left and their vitriol against people that want to do something to help with the homeless issue from a public safety perspective, why is it? What is driving that? I mean, I always think it's about money, but what is driving this idea that these particular humans deserve extra attention or care than other humans?
I wish I knew the answer to that question. Of course, the original bill that I ran with your wife, Senator Standridge, it was basically a setback bill for a homeless shelter. She was able to get it out of the Senate, and then I couldn't get it out of committee. I worked with the committee members, and we came down to an impasse on the footage setback, because we have and I don't remember what the distance is, but we have a distance that a dispensary can't be within a school, and we have a different distance that a liquor store can't be within a school. And then you also have, if you're a sex offender,
Right.
How far? And these are all three different.
Oh, they're different links?
They're all different.
Okay.
So I was trying to make the point that let's just take it off of the largest one is the sex offender. So I was like, let's take it off the plate for the homeless shelter to even have to worry about that, and let's go with that distance. Well, there were some that didn't agree with that, so we went round and round with that, never could come to an agreement. So this past year, kind of really digging into that issue, I wrote a bill that really didn't change a whole lot about what we do dealing with this, but what it did do was it gave us some oversight on the money side, and it also gave us some health standard minimums. And then it also, so if a homeless shelter is going to go to some small community that doesn't have the resources that Norman or Oklahoma City has, and I was mainly using Oklahoma City because Oklahoma City has had several homeless shelters for many years, and they do a really good job with it by and large. So trying to get some of those best practice things into the rules to help these communities that are experiencing people coming in, they don't know what to do. You have somebody come in riding in on a white horse saying, I've got the answer, we can fix this, and they don't know any better, so they're like, okay, yeah, let's do that, and then you wind up having problems, kind of like what we've seen here in Norman. Trying to help prevent that. And the left, you would have thought that I was
I
juggling cats in the rotunda or something, you know, or it made no sense to me, because when it was like, well, Tulsa and Oklahoma City are doing this right, I'm like, yeah, by and large they are.
Yeah, this bill part doesn't affect them.
It doesn't affect them. This borrowing from their years of experience to help other communities to be able to replicate that and do it right, and have some of these protections. It was really, I mean, I don't want, just like you said, the homeless people, they're people. I don't want them in an environment that's not safe. I want them to be safe. I want the community around them to be safe, and I want the people that work and live around them to be safe. What's wrong with that? I'm not saying you have to ship them off to an island. I'm saying, let's come up with some ways that.
But they have to follow the rules. So if they're not going to accept help, they can't live on the street. They have to try to find themselves a path back to society.
Yep.
And so, but I also found an interesting article. Again, it's the way they're written that I find almost humorous. So the tagline or whatever for this article was, man found dead of suspected drug overdose with knife wound. I mean, okay. I mean, if you walked across a bridge and you found a dead body there, and there's a knife sticking out, or there's a knife there, you probably wouldn't say, yeah, looks like a drug overdose to me. Yeah.
Probably a drug overdose.
So, I mean, I wonder, when you see the vitriol from the left and all of this, maybe it isn't about money, but a lot of times, like when we saw it with the gender stuff with OU, and we see it with DEI, and I mean, almost feels like there's something more there. Like there's some big money thing, or there's something, because a lot of these people, I mean, they don't seem like people that really care that much.
Yeah.
And and I bet when Norman proposed the camping in your front yard, I bet they weren't too hip about that.
Yeah.
But the homeless issue is going to be a tough one, I think, for quite a few years.
Yeah, I think it will be. And, hey, I'll be the first to admit, maybe that bill wasn't the answer.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was at least a step in that direction. It had a board that was defined, and what their role was to work with these homeless shelters and come up with these best practice rules, and I mean, I know I didn't have it defined, but they also know that there are multiple different types of shelters. You have the ones that are like women and children. You have the ones that are families. You have the ones that just take.
What are the ones called that they have where they don't do any checking or anything? There's a name for them. Anyway, that's the kind that I guess people are most worried about.
Yes,
because there's no way to know, especially like on the east side of Norman, there's schools and stuff right around there. So there's legitimate concerns. I mean, if you don't know who's in there, how do you know that it's I'll probably get slammed for this, but how do you know it's not a child predator? How do you know it's not somebody selling drugs? Because there's a lot of drug selling and buying and using going on in some of these encampments and shelters. So what is that? God, I cannot think of the name of it.
Zero barrier?
Low barrier. Low barrier. So I don't know that world very well, so I may be speaking out of without much knowledge there, but that is the one that I think a lot of people are concerned about, because if it's within a few hundred yards of a school or children, which is anywhere in Norman, really. I mean, is that? But I mean, Oklahoma City, would probably say, well, we have what are we going to do? We got the problem. We have to, So it's a tough area. It's a tough problem.
And I've had extensive conversations with different groups that run shelters, and I understand their side of it too. Okay, we have a population that is not highly mobile, and they need resources. So we need to be near those resources. Well, that almost automatically puts you close to a school in just about any community across the entire state of Oklahoma.
That's right. Yeah.
So there are issues, but to just say that it's, we can't figure anything out, so we just let you guys all figure it out. That's not a solution. You've got to keep having the conversations.
Yeah, the problem, though, it's the same problem we talk about with vaccines or whatever. Anytime, though, the government comes in, and I've talked to Senator Standridge about this sometime, when the government comes in too heavy, like if they say, we got to take care of this, well, there's dollar signs associated with that. And so how much you willing to spend? And whenever the government starts a new program, it never ends. When they do the pilot program, that pilot doesn't retire at 60 anymore, or whatever the age is these days. He keeps flying. So I think the government needs to kind of come in and put some guardrails or something. So, but don't fund anything. Don't start a big, state-funded facility, because it will only balloon and grow. Because it's kind of like fixing mental health. I mean, there's not enough beds, there's not enough money, there's not enough of, but it is what it is. Well, what is some of the stuff you worked on your last 2 years that have been? I mean, you in the last 2 years you served as assistant floor leader, right? And then the calendar committee still, you were on that, or whatever the committee is that puts the bills on the floor. So what has been the thing that you've achieved in the House besides legislation that you're most proud of?
Well, my time over in the legislature, I've been, most of that time I've spent 6 years being the chair of general government. The last 2 years, the House went to a tiered system. So I did 4 years as general government. And then the last 2 years with that tiered system, I was government oversight, which has several committees that feed into that. So it has to pass what we call a policy committee and then come to oversight. So I've got elections and ethics, pensions, county government.
That all kind of funnels into that?
That feed into that. And it's a large committee. We kind of have a split calendar on our committees now, because you got to have enough policy bills ready to be heard, and we don't allow them to jump. They have to go through policy.
Okay.
So
it really adds another step.
Yeah.
It's like doubly assigned no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And then if it's got money, it probably has to go again through a finance or appropriations.
Theoretically, if it has money attached to it, it already goes to an A and B subcommittee. And then
to appropriations.
Now over there, that's a little bit different animal. It can go just straight to full A and B. Most of the bills go through a subcommittee, and then and really what a lot of the fear with the tiered system was that, that's just going to be a better way to just kill really good legislation. And what has wound up happening is that's not been the case. We've been able to, what I do with my committee, which we have, we can meet 2 times a week, and we usually have at least 2 weeks, so 4 meetings that we can have. And multiple times I've had a bill that come in, and we get asking a lot of questions, and the author will elect to lay the bill over, work with the committee on an amendment, because what we're trying to do is get amendments done in the committee as opposed to doing it on the floor, because you know how it gets on the floor.
On the House, for sure.
And you're trying to keep up with, a bill that has 4 amendments filed on it, and 2 of them completely change the bill. You don't even know what you're reading, what they're going to actually present. So trying to eliminate that. And I haven't had staff run the numbers, but I would say that we probably have about half as many floor amendments as what we did before.
Okay.
My philosophy on it, I told all of the subcommittee chairs and vice chairs who also serve on my committee on that oversight, I told them, I said, it's your job to vet the bills. If it passes your committee and I get a request to hear, I'm going to hear it. So if it's a bad bill, you're gonna.
So the policy committee still is kind of responsible for making sure policy. So
now, what we more deal with is some of those finite details. So as far as coming over to labor, I see it quite the same. You're overseeing a state agency that has multiple departments, about an average of 80 employees. It goes up, when you're doing ride inspections. County fairs will be getting into high gear in the fall. So we'll bring more people on to do things like that. But you've got all these multiple agencies that you're overseeing, and I see it being a lot the same. Working with these varying subject matters from each of these different policy committees, and being able to work with the people that it affect, the lobbyists, and the committee members, to figure out, is this a direction that we want to go? And then being on that, what we've done over in the House is also every oversight chair, which we have 6 oversight chairs, are also on the floor team. That's your what you call the calendar committee. where we review. So we've got at least one person in the room that has heard that bill, knows something about it, so that when we're reviewing it, we're not like, because what we used to do before, if nobody really knew much about the bill, we would hold it and have somebody go talk to the author about it, maybe have them come in and talk to us. But at least this way, we've got a better understanding of what's going on. And I think, all of that directly feeds into, and then the last 2 years I've worked on the Administrative Rules Committee.
Oh.
And as you know, every agency head has the ability to write administrative rules.
Essentially laws, yeah.
Yeah, it carries the exact same weight as statute. So knowing what the limitations are, because in almost every case, the legislature says we want you to issue licenses for this, but you figure out the details. Well,
yeah.
There's usually more guardrails than that, but you've got to know how to work within what those guardrails are. Something like the driver's license being able to be changed from male to female, female to male, that should have never even been.
Yeah, I wonder where that, because it, like you said, it came from.
Yeah.
Wonder when that happened. I mean, was it something maybe harmless at the time? Probably.
Yeah,
something.
Probably.
It's like an
it could
actual
have been
error.
a misinterpretation of what federal law was, or the feds might have had some rule that.
Because errors are made. So I
Yeah.
mean, somebody could have put the wrong thing on the birth certificate, and then they didn't find out until they went and got their driver's license. So,
But you, if you're going to be in a position to do that, you first and foremost need to be able to understand what the law says and what the guardrails are, and then make the rule within that. So having that experience is a huge leg up. That's also an area that I've already started looking at to identify, have we gotten outside of the lines? So far, I haven't found anything, but, really working through that. And even if it's something that, say, like specific to Department of Labor, maybe industry really likes it, but it gets outside of the lines. To me, it's no different than going to court on a law. I don't want that judge saying, well, it makes sense, even though the law doesn't specifically say that. No, I want you to go with what the law says, because I don't want it to, if it favors me in the moment, I'm like, yay. But if it doesn't, then we all complain about it, So the safe area is follow the law. So if we need to have an expansion, then we go to the legislature and work through that process to get a broader scope, or a new law that gives us, in these conditions you can write rules, things like that. Because once I'm labor commissioner, there will be one after me and one after that, as long as we're still all around. And you want to have that continuity, because this as a business owner, whether you like the law or you don't like the law, as long as it's being applied equally and fairly.
Right. That's right.
You can work with that, because that's a level playing field. And as much as possible, we need to put the guardrails in place to ensure that we're not going to play favorites. We're not going to favor this multi-million-dollar company over this mom and pop, or vice versa.
So having a labor commissioner that's elected, this has been a topic in the legislature.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a populist, so I'm good with it. But do you talk about favoritism, and this is one thing that I wonder about, whether it's an insurance commissioner or labor commissioner or superintendent of schools, because that position is elected. Do you think it's one, do you think it should be elected? And two, do you think that lends itself less or more to being swayed by monies or whatever, donations and that kind of thing?
That's the big question. Both of us having been in the legislature, we have seen where appointed people do some really bad things,
for sure.
and you have virtually no ability.
No accountability, hardly, except to be fired. That's about it.
I've actually had an agency head tell me, well, Representative, you do what you feel you need to do. I'll be here long after you're gone. Yeah. And I've heard others have had similar conversations. Obviously, if it's an elected position, that costs money. And, donations come in. Does a big donation sway somebody? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but at least there is that level of accountability. Throughout this campaign, like I said, I made my announcement in October, and from October up till now, and as I go in, I'm fully expecting to win on the 25th and go to the general. I'll be campaigning on a message, and if I ultimately get elected, then I've got something that the people can hold me accountable to. And if I'm appointed, then it's up to whoever the appointing authority is.
Probably be the governor.
Probably the governor. Some of our appointments have Senate confirmation, which gives a
We've taken away a lot of that.
But yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, there's only about a dozen or so.
Oh, there's more, but this is one, and President Pro Tem Bingman, I think, was baffled by this as well. During my 12 years, I voted no every single time, but we got rid of lots of confirmations. Yeah. And I could say, well, I can see the House getting rid of our power, but why would you power? It's not just power,
would we
though.
Take away our own power.
Yeah, but it's also accountability.
Yes.
So I've seen nominees be not considered because they had problems, and but they gave generously to the governor, and whether it's this governor or another one, and I'm not saying anything bad about a governor. That's called patronage. That's what this country, whether you like it or not, that's how the system works. And so, if Bob Jones, whatever, gave $5,000 to the governor's campaign and then asked to be on the transportation committee, he's probably going to put him on there. Probably. But maybe he's not the right guy.
Yeah.
And that's why you have that confirmation, and why the Senate would get rid of their own ability to make people accountable is baffling beyond degree. We did it with Healthcare Authority. We did it with big ones, not just little ones.
Yeah.
The State Board of Education, we just give him total power over there.
And the flip side is, because it does cost money, and because you're putting yourself under a microscope and a spotlight at the same time, there might be very well qualified people to be whatever position, and they're like, I'm not going to put myself and my family through that.
Politics it's a beast.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, what was it? About 6 years ago, we put on the ballot to make the governor and lieutenant governor a ticket, like we do with president and vice president.
Right.
And that made it to the ballot, and it was on the same ballot as medical marijuana. I think it got the exact same vote that medical marijuana got, just in the opposite.
Right.
The no. People are not real quick, even though they don't go to the polls like they should,
or they don't study research.
They're not real quick to give up their right to vote for some of these.
I agree. So. Yeah, I wish I call on, every time I do one podcast, I call on voters, please do. You'll win with 80% or more if they do their research, Kevin. Nothing against your opponent. It just is what it is. But I think that voters really ought to invest just a little bit more time.
Yeah.
Don't read the whole book,
Yeah.
But go out and do some due diligence of your own. Don't just look at the mailers. I think most of the mailers are absolutely untrue. Actually, I mean, good or bad.
Yeah,
I think I'm like
exactly.
reading these things saying, nah, I don't think so. And I saw during the AG race, I supported John, who's going to win that, and I've said this a couple times. In one day, I think I got 3 mailers. One, he's a scumbag. He's a scumbag. I mean, who's the scumbag? Right. Or who's the bigger scumbag? I don't know. And actually, some of the stuff isn't even true, or it's such a stretch. But voters believe it. I wish voters would just actually throw those all away, go to their websites, go to their Facebook, read some stuff out there, then make up your mind. Don't look at the mailers, or a lot of them are paid for by outside groups that hate this guy because he's not for their deal. And they'll make up whatever. They'll say, he was in Costa Rica 3 years ago. I think he's made a deal with the communist leader there, so whatever. You never know what these people will say. And so,
and oftentimes they can just say something and it drops like 2 or 3 days before the election where you can't even counter it.
You can't counter, or you don't have the money to counter it. It's a statewide race. Who's got the money? And it's not only that. For voters, unfortunately, it's guilty until proven innocent. I mean, you can tell, and I will bring up John again. He's already won, so what does he care? But I mean, this whole deal about the DUI thing, I'm like, none of the conversations had him in the conversation. I'm like, I might talk to you and say, Kevin, that governor, Kevin, I'm going to give him a call. Now, I don't know whether the governor had a hand. He might have the power to do something. I don't think the floor leader actually would. But he's not even quoted. But I had voters tell me, well, John was involved. I said, they mentioned him. He wasn't in the conversation. They don't have a phone call with them and him, only between the two guilty parties that probably schemed all day long about, and I don't even know them, but I mean, they might have been talking about how the AG will help them, or how the governor will help them, how Representative Smith would help them. Who knows? So it's crazy.
Well, to your point, the overall point, and I say this all the time whenever I go and talk to people. If your toilet breaks and you want to replace it yourself, but you don't know everything about it, you're probably going to do some research on it. You're going to Google it. You have a hole in your sheetrock that you're going to plug. You don't want to hire somebody. You're going to learn a little bit about that online, and 9 times out of 10, when you go to the store, you have a pretty good idea of what you're getting into and how to do this. Every single one of these candidates have a website, Facebook page, all of that. Now, and I say this too, my website is exactly the same. I put on there what I want you to know about me.
Right. But then they can go to social media.
Exactly. But you know what else is on there? My email address, my cell phone. Call me. Send me an email.
I wish they wouldn't believe the mailers. I mean, I just, good or bad, whether I'm for the candidate or against them, I say just throw them in the trash. Most of them are untrue, positive and negative. And if it has the candidate's name on it, I'd be more likely to believe at least they're trying to be honest. It's maybe stretching. Like, I was the king of the world. Well, no, you were just king of one little country. But anyway, but they're probably, because they know they're somehow accountable. But if it has paid for by logistics in Cleveland, Ohio, they don't give a crap.
No.
They'll say whatever because they have a vested interest in one of the 2 candidates or 10 candidates, whatever.
And I say this too, if you find a website that has an email and or cell phone number on it, and you send them an email or a text or a phone call, and they don't respond to you, that probably tells you something about them.
That for sure. I think I've always told candidates that have asked me, I said, put your stuff out there, because I've had people, because they're one of my opponents at one time, because I didn't put my cell phone number on everything. I put on some stuff, but it wasn't intentional. I just neglected, and he made an issue of that. That's fine. He wasn't lying. It wasn't on some stuff, and so since then I've always said, put it. Nobody calls. But they should.
They should.
Like, especially if they see something negative about you, they probably should text you or email or call and say, listen, I saw that you and whatever that girl is in South Dakota, you both killed your dogs over the weekend or whatever. I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, just a simple question to the candidate, and probably you would get a phone call if it was something like that.
Well, I had, there's a ton of Facebook groups and everything else, and I am endorsed by OK2A.
Oh, yeah.
I've ran a lot of legislation for them. And one of their discussion group pages, they had put something out about the candidates that they had endorsed. This was before the primary. And, I see it, and I'm looking through the comments. And usually if I see something like that, I'll put a link to my webpage on there or something. Well, I saw one person multiple times commented saying, but why are you endorsing these people? And nobody really answered this person. So I sent an instant message to this person and said, here's my website, and if you would like to talk to me, here's my phone number. And I got a phone call. We had about a 45 minute phone call, and now that person is supporting me wholeheartedly. Do a little bit of this kind of research, because you do it for your whatever food you're going to feed.
I wish
your
more
dog
voters would do that.
Whatever.
See, we need groups, and not that OK2A is going to be perfect about every pig, but if people would take that time to go through and find a group that they like or trust, but vet the group too.
Yes.
Because I actually, I do like social media to some extent, but it's so full of falsities. You got to be careful. Yeah. But I have noticed that I'll agree with a group on one thing and disagree with them on another. So make sure you do that. But please, voters, take a little bit more time. It's not for labor commissioner, because that's Kevin West, but any other seat.
West
take
is
a look.
best.
West is best. But what other things I think we've done? This has been great. Kevin, so what other things have we not covered? I know we've the county. You mentioned the county fair.
Yeah.
So you don't do the food trucks, probably, though, do you? You just do like the rides and stuff like that.
Do the ride inspections. And again, that's a public safety.
Right.
deal.
Right.
Most people don't think about it unless it's like the state fair, and sometimes the news will do a story, hey, the labor commissioner was out here and did this, or if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Then I know last year one of the county fairs had a ride that broke. Had a hose break on it, and it took about an hour to get that corrected. Some kids were stuck on a Ferris wheel or something. Things like that are going to happen, but
it's machines, right?
Yes. It's about that safety issue. And like I said early on, safety for me will never take a back seat. I mentioned that I've been around table saws for 40 years, still have all my fingers.
I have I'm obviously not a professional, but I have a saw stop, but I've never tested it. But I have a saw stop table saw, which I think's incredible technology. Everybody should have one of those. They're going to have a table saw in this day and time. But I have a regular table saw too.
Well,
but I know people with some fingers issues. So
I'll be honest with you. The times that I've cut myself, it's been that stupid lapse of judgment, with either
it's usually a hammer or a screwdriver,
a chisel. With me, it's been like a chisel or a box knife, something along those lines. But really having a focus on the safety.
Well, this has been your world in the private sector, and of course, the legislature is a big part of its task is ensuring safety. And
this is a department that most of the people watching this probably don't realize that we often, because I'm still in the legislature, but the legislature often writes bills that affects labor laws.
Oh, yeah.
And the Department of Labor enforces all of those. So it is one that has a lot of interaction with the legislature, or should, And, you know, being able to have those kind of relationships and combined with the experience, you know, like I said, you have a pharmacy business. I know next to nothing about that. I know that's where I go when I go to the doctor and I get a prescription. But I know what it's like to work for somebody. I know what you go through because I've had to hire skilled people. I know what it's like for you to try to find skilled people. So where with me, you know, we can pretty much cut to the specifics that deal with what you're dealing with, as opposed to having to cover all these bases because you know, so many people haven't been out in the real world.
A lot of people haven't been.
And-
Yeah, it's and being an employee is different than running companies and having your own company. So, well, I think you will do an amazing job, Kevin. I think you're perfect fit for it. I'm excited for the 25th. I think you have a very, very good shot of winning, but
Yeah.
don't stop working.
Nope.
Tonkawa tonight.
Tonkawa
and
tonight.
probably somewhere else in every part of the state between now and the 25th.
I've got something, I believe, every single day up to election day.
I bet you
So,
do. Well,
you know, until those polls close, there's still votes out there. So
still texting, still calling,
Yep.
still. Well, good luck, Kevin. I
Well,
know
thank
you're going
you.
to take it home.